screen, healthcare in between, physics, art, and math got us down this path. Historical tales come alive, where science and stories dive, blending facts with heart, knowledge from the start. Need bridge blues we sing to the future memory. Health and science in the mix. Need bridge got the fix. Complex subjects make
right
clear
now
every episode
in ways that we actually acquire the information
leads the way.
and ways that make me more efficient.
In the world of digital streams, turning knowledge into dreams. Through the tales of old, new stories unfold.
Thank you so much for joining with me. It is truly an honor and a privilege.
MedBits Webcast is a new kind of healthcare media channel to break the silo mentality and foster interdisciplinary thinking. Our mission is to fill that gap and to create a curiosity through different lenses, tapping the passion that guided the historical figures in medicine and bringing present-day groundbreaking research to the front lines. We interview physicians and leaders in the industry about present-day healthcare challenges on our live programming.
Hey, welcome to the MedBits Webcast. This is Raman Annamaraju. I have a guest today, very dear to my heart. she's going to be coming soon. I want to give you a little bit about. I changed my studio a little bit. Looks different a little bit. So I'm in the center of Silicon Valley. I'm in Santa Clara. It's called Santa Clara. That's where I'm from, where I'm broadcasting from. So another thing is that, let us talk about the cardiovascular diseases a little bit about, in general. So cardiovascular disease, I come to know, as a stupid man I am, there is a big difference between the women and men about the cardiovascular diseases. The symptoms, the diagnosis and treatment, all of them is a big variation there. I didn't know that, blame me for that. So very fortunately, I got connected with the Association of Black Cardiologists a long time ago. Don't ask me, I'm Indian, but you don't ask me how I connected with them. Maybe dark chocolate, maybe some influence there. I don't know about that. But anyway, that where I used to see this remarkable woman, Dr. Karol Watson. She used to be very quiet, unremarkable at the time, very quiet. Now she is extremely distinguished cardiologist. She has more than 100 publications. She is a UCLA professor of cardiovascular medicine, and she is a Barbra Streisand heart program, and she has a NIH grant funds, and she is a prolific researcher. So I cannot fill up the pages that her qualifications are. She's everywhere. She's on TV and everything. When I met her, very quiet. So all of a sudden changed. She's in red dress and all kinds of things. Let me bring her to the table. I will ask her. Welcome, Dr. Watson.
So good to
I was
see
telling
you.
you when I saw you a long time ago.
Thank you
Very
for
quiet.
inviting me.
Thank you, madam. So tell us, Dr. Watson. So your journey, where are you from? Originally, or from California?
I'm originally from Gary, Indiana.
Oh my God! Yeah. Okay.
I didn't live there long. I moved to California when I was 4.
Okay. That's I used to go to the Michigan City and Gary, Indiana, pass by where famous Michael Jackson.
Right?
And then when I went to see Dr. Richard Williams, that is not that far. His house is not that far from there, right? So that is a. I will bring myself there and both of us together can see. So let me hide this. Okay. Dr. Watson, so tell me your association with the Association of Black Cardiologists. You were doing in the beginning days, you used to come down quite a bit there. So tell
Yeah,
us a little bit
no.
about your association with the Association of Black Cardiologists.
So I have to say that is the organization that was most instrumental in my career. Of all of my great organizations, American Heart Association, American College of Cardiology, the one that was most instrumental in my career was the Association of Black Cardiologists. I started going there when I was a medical student. They have a medical student section, and I started going to their meetings, and I was blown away. You don't see a room full of brilliant, accomplished, um, just forward thinking Black cardiologists very often. And that was a really, really wonderful experience. And I could see myself, I didn't know many Black cardiologists. I suddenly could see myself as a cardiologist. And there was just everyone wanted to make sure you got what you needed for your career. So everyone wanted to help you. Most of my promotion letters have come from members of the Association of Black Cardiology. And I really just, the whole organization is just a phenomenal, phenomenal organization. And many careers have been made on its back. And Dr. Williams was the founder. That's where I met him.
Yes, correct. So, actually, I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. Actually, originally, most of my life I spent in Atlanta. So I met a lot of cardiologists, they're Black cardiologists. I used to work with them, and I'm not a doctor, but I used to do the echocardiograms and all the supply machines and all those things. Kevin McLaurin and Paul Douglas and all those people. I used to work. So that actually, I'm a little bit behind the scenes. I mean, I played a little bit of a role bringing the Association of Black Cardiologists to Atlanta. Because I sponsored the first dinner there in the Jamaican restaurant, and it was a fantastic. And Dr. Wincong and Dr. Williams were there, so they loved it, and they moved to Atlanta, Georgia. But I think they moved back to Washington D.C. So that's a great association, as you say that you have a wonderful that mentors there for everybody. That's really, I learned quite a bit from, even though I used to go to Indian Cardiology Association, I combined them, both of them together. Actually, we had one seminar together, Indian Cardiology Association, and then ABC together. We went to the Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach. We used to go there, and it was a fantastic. Actually, we sponsored. It was a program we did together. But you did a preventive cardiology quite a bit, Dr. Watson. Let us talk about. I was when I mentioned the Dr. Dark Chocolate, I said that you mentioned one of the videos. Dark chocolate and coffee are good, which I like it. I like it the most. the coffee. I love coffee. So tell us, you went through a lot of steps on the basically, that you gave up 5 steps. Like what do you do? Exercise, movement is such an important aspect.
Wow.
So tell us a little bit about the moving body.
Well, yeah, I can tell you our motto in the preventive cardiology program is move frequently, eat thoughtfully, and connect deeply, because those really are the things that help improve life and help us live longer. So for moving frequently, people always ask me, like, what's the best thing? Should I marathon run? Should I mountain bike? And I'm like, that's crazy. Don't do that. What you should do is you should walk every day and all the time. That's what we were meant to do. We weren't meant to necessarily run marathons, but we were meant to walk every day all the time. And I have my Hall of Fame patients. Those are my 90-plus-year-olds who've made it there with great brain, great heart, really doing well. 201. They all walk daily.
You mentioned very good. You don't say that you don't have to be marathon runners. But actually, some of the marathon runners died in heart attack. Actually, with a heart problem. So you need to walk. We are meant for walking. That's what he said. That not for sitting down there. I'm in Silicon Valley. The Indians, we have a big problem here. People sitting down in front of the computers now,
Yeah.
and hours and hours they spend. we have a diabetes, and we have a cardiovascular disease is a very prevalent among Indians, and then other communities, but it's becoming a huge problem, a burden for the Indian community here. So tell us that what they can do, standing, or what they can do with the
Yeah,
people who work on the 24 hours a day on the
well,
laptops.
there's a lot of good evidence that sitting time is bad. The more you sit, the worse your cardiovascular outcomes are. And so when they looked at it, if you sit more than, it's a nice stepwise change, but really you can't sit more than 25% of the day without your heart suffering. And by that doesn't mean you have to be up walking or jogging that whole time, but you do have to get up every few hours and not just sit, because sitting time is associated with a lot of things like diabetes and heart disease and things that we don't want.
And the connected to the mortality at the end, right? Is a high mortality rates. So let us talk about now. Next up is eating. What is eating? And now I'm talking about preventive cardiology.
Yeah.
What is the eating? I like, I used to go with the doctors. Some doctors, the steak, big steak, red meat, and all those things they eat. Some people became vegetarians. I eat meat. This is where do you draw the line, and what is the eating process that?
So there are a number of eating patterns that have been associated with longevity. The DASH type diet, dietary approaches to stopping hypertension, the Mediterranean diet. Our personal favorite is the classic Mediterranean diet. In that diet, it's basically at the base of their pyramid is a lot of whole grains. Above that would be vegetables and fruits, then fish, then poultry and eggs, then dairy, and at the very top, like we really don't want you eating much of this, is red meat, sweets. So there's so many good studies that show for every serving of whole grains you get a day, you can reduce your mortality by about 5% or so. And a serving isn't a lot. A serving is one whole grain slice of bread. And by that, I mean really whole grain, not white bread, and not even that wheat bread that looks kind of like white bread and tastes kind of like white bread. It's really the whole grain bread. Those breads that look like bark, they really have all of the fiber in them. Things like that, or steel cut oatmeal, just one small serving, things like that. And
I love rice. What do you think of rice?
No, rice is, unfortunately, rice is a simple carbohydrate no matter how they package it. Whether it's white rice, brown rice is a little bit better, but it's still bad. It's all high glycemic index, meaning when you put it in your mouth, the blood sugar spikes in your body. And so we don't really recommend that. And again, I tell my patients this all the time. If you know what you're going to eat is not going to make you healthier, make sure it makes you really, really happy, and just eat a small amount. So I don't tell anyone not to eat rice, but definitely be mindful about it and try to limit the amounts. But the next class of things we should be eating are fruits and vegetables. Yeah. They are good. And when they look at it, we always lump them in together. Yeah. But it turns out that vegetable intake is a little better for you than fruit intake. And that's probably because some of our fruits are very high in sugars. And even though it's natural sugars, too much sugars in our body is just not a good thing. So get a lot of vegetables in and a moderate amount of fruit. Then the protein source that is most healthful is fish. Yeah. And it's actually the big, firm, fatty fish like halibut or salmon or sea bass. Other fishes like trout or tilapia, they're not bad for you, but they don't have as many healthful omega-3 fatty acids to increase survival. So they're kind of neutral. But the fatty fish increase survival. And even shellfish like shrimp and lobster, they're not harmful. They're kind of neutral and they're quite yummy, but they don't increase survival like those fatty fish do.
What kind of, so we have to cook, right? What kind of oil use it? What kind of oil you think we prefer to use? We should use it.
Yeah, no question at all. The healthiest oil to use is olive oil.
Okay.
Olive oil is a monounsaturated oil. The other monounsaturated oil is canola oil, but canola oil is highly processed, so we don't like that as much. But olive oil in many studies has been shown to be beneficial. In fact, in the PREDIMED study, where they randomized elderly patients in Spain to one of three diets, a classic Mediterranean diet supplemented with a quart of olive oil a week, or a classic Mediterranean diet supplemented with a handful of nuts a day, that's about 20 nuts, or a classic low-fat diet. And they looked at the primary outcome of non-fatal MI, non-fatal stroke, and cardiovascular death. The individuals in the Mediterranean diet groups, both of them, had the lowest cardiovascular event rates, so they had lower heart attack, stroke, and cardiovascular death than the low-fat group. And if you look at the group that was supplemented with extra virgin olive oil, they had lower stroke rates as well. So olive oil is just really helpful. It's actually also very, very yummy. So we use it in all of our cooking in our home.
Let us talk about stress. Then we talk about eating food. A lot of one more thing in the eating part of it. In Indian food, there's called ghee. It's
Yes.
a frozen. That is a it freezes in the so.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that, if you don't mind.
So ghee is a highly saturated form of fat, which is very atherogenic. And I think a lot of the heart disease risk in Indian populations may be carried in the ghee. I worry about that. It's again, and there's some it's a very popular thing right now to use it, but
But
it
it's
is
not.
not healthy. I don't think
Yeah.
anyone would argue for its health.
I agree with you. Now let us talk about stress part. You know, we are under stress all the time. We have a very political stress, job stress, and all kind of stress we go through. How do you handle? How is it connected with the cardiovascular diseases, and how do you manage the stress?
Yeah, there's we call it the heart-mind connection. There's a really strong connection. So whenever you're under stress, you feel like you're under stress, stress hormones are surging in your body. Those are deleterious to your heart. Here's the other thing though. Sometimes you don't even outwardly feel like you're under stress, but your body thinks you're under stress, and that's dangerous to your heart as well. So definitely outwardly feeling like you're under stress is bad. We should do whatever we can to manage stress. We are firm believers in mindfulness, therapy if you need it. We have a wellness program affiliated with our Women's Cardiovascular Center, and we have an integrative medicine woman who does stress management, a psychologist who our patients can see. We are strong believers in managing stress. And because your body knows if you're under stress, your heart will suffer.
Yeah, the one of the things is that there is a new kind of stress in the Silicon Valley putting on everybody in the world. Technology stress, is because you have to learn the new stuff. A lot of doctors go to the EMR, electronic medical records. They wanted to. I had a doctor in Atlanta, Georgia. He used to say, I am scared of going to the exam room because I'm going to press the wrong button, something is going to blow up. So what kind of that is a stress itself. I think medical medicine and a lot of cardiologists I think that is a one area we need to do some research. Do you agree with that?
I do. One of the things, our technology boom has been so amazing for this world, but we've lost some things. We've lost a lot of social connection. I have to tell you a story. It's when my son was a teenager, and I don't remember what he had done, but he had gotten his phone taken away because he did something naughty.
Yeah.
And I remember him picking up a regular phone and calling one of his friends to find out what the homework assignment was. And his first statement was, "I'm so sorry for calling you. I would have texted, but my mom took my phone." Like, they got out of the habit of talking to one another, and they just text each other. And that's what we are doing now. We don't necessarily go to our regularly scheduled meetings. We now have a bunch of Zooms and we see each other, but we've sort of missed that connection. And I think I think a lot of things will suffer because of that.
I think the one of the thing is that people like you should raise awareness about that, and also, it is really a very big critical issue, because this technology stress is, even today I went through a lot of technical issues and all those things. Is a lot of stress. So this is kind of thing we need to work on that. Let us talk about some the now, once we cannot stop, some people get diseases. So I married a black woman, and my ex-wife is a black woman. I have a child, I have a daughter. She works in San Francisco. She is a mix of Indian and she worries about that, all these cardiovascular diseases. And tell us, what is a gender? First of all, is there any gender differences? Let us talk about first racial. Then we can talk about the racial differences. Let us talk about gender differences a little bit. Is there any symptom-wise? Is there any different symptoms for the woman face? And
There are definitely differences.
yeah,
So women get as much heart disease as do men. That's clear. Women die as often from heart disease as do men. In certain populations, like African Americans, there's a little slight increase in number of deaths amongst Black women compared to Black men. That's largely because Black men tend to die younger. But the women get as much heart disease as do men. The difference is they classically don't develop heart disease until about 10 years later than men do. And we know a lot about the differences. There are differences in the way heart disease develops in women. There are differences in some of the risk factors. Some of them are the same risk factors, like diabetes. Diabetes is bad for everyone. It's worse for women. So if a man who's 50 years of age has diabetes as compared to a man who's 50 years of age who doesn't, he may have a twofold increased risk of heart disease. The 50-year-old woman who has diabetes compared to the 50-year-old woman who doesn't has a fivefold increased risk of heart disease. So diabetes and everything along the carbohydrate metabolic pathway is worse for women than it is for men. The metabolic syndrome, high carbohydrate diets, high glycemic intake foods, higher risk for women than for men. Hypertension, there's some thinking that hypertension has a slightly higher risk for women than men. And then there are a number of risk factors in women that men will never have, things related to reproductive hormones.
I
So
didn't know that.
every reproductive hormonal change time in a woman's life is a high-risk time. Puberty, pregnancy, and menopause. What happens in puberty? No one has any sex hormones into puberty, and then suddenly around age 12, boys and girls get testosterone for boys, estrogen for girls. What happens then? A lot of things, but one of the things is everyone gets taller. Boys tend to get taller and thinner. Girls tend to get taller and heavier. And when that happens, a lot of cardiovascular risk factors start, like
Interesting.
diabetes and hypertension and high cholesterol. And so the earlier a woman goes through puberty, the higher her later mortality is. And that's probably because those risk factors start earlier. And then there comes pregnancy. We call pregnancy a stress test for the heart. You're making a whole new human. That's a lot of work on the heart. And if there are any sort of subclinical or hidden risks that a woman has, they will often express themselves during her pregnancy. So she may never have known she had any problems with diabetes, but then she might get gestational diabetes when she's pregnant. Her blood pressure may have always been perfectly normal, but then she could get preeclampsia when she's pregnant. And all of those risks portend a much higher cardiovascular risk later in life.
Can they develop a cardiac disease through pregnancy because they're prone to
There
the
are
coronary?
and there are certain cardiac diseases that are pretty unique for pregnancy. One of them is called SCAD, spontaneous coronary artery dissection. It can happen in anyone, but it happens strikingly in pregnancy. Not very often, but when a pregnant woman has a heart attack, it was almost certainly caused by SCAD. And nobody really understands exactly what's going on with SCAD. It turns out it's probably part of a vascular problem, like the vessels weren't totally normal to start with, and then hormonal changes make them more vulnerable to the pressures and the stress, and so the arteries can just dissect. When that happens, a heart attack ensues. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. While you're doing that, I'll mention the other hormonal transition time that's very dangerous in a woman's life, and that's menopause. So menopause, so many things happen with the sudden loss of endogenous estrogen. Blood pressures go up, cholesterol goes up, diabetes risk goes up. Weight tends to go up, and it tends to be that weight you hold on into your middle section. And all of those things greatly increase your cardiac risk. So remember when I said it takes women about 10 years later to develop heart disease as compared to men? Once they undergo the menopause, their heart disease rates are exactly the same as men.
See, what another one is, I just saw one of the picture of you to do the Ambien sleeping pill makes a difference between the woman and woman for the cardiac disease. Can you hear me?
No, so
Yeah.
Ambien, all sorts of things. We used to think I remember when my kids were little, when you're a baby, like we measure out your Tylenol to like the centimeter, you get those little syringes and you squirt in only the right amount according to their weight and their size. But then as soon as someone gets over the age of 18, we give them all the same doses of everything. So we give the 300-pound guy and the 120-pound woman the exact same doses. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Probably not.
Yeah.
And many studies have shown, that's not right. So if you look at some of our medications that we use for heart failure, studies have shown that women actually have optimal benefits at lower doses than do men. When you look at the adverse event reports that go to the FDA about drugs that have harmed someone, almost all of them are in women who get a larger dose for their body size because we dose them the same. And some of the sleeping pills, we found that women were basically being overdosed because we gave them the standard dose that we would give a 200-pound man, and that was too much for them.
So let's talk about, I'm in Silicon Valley. Everybody is talking about artificial intelligence here. They think, what do you think of AI predicting the diseases? Yeah, artificial intelligence, AI agents helping you improve the health. What do you think of your take on the artificial intelligence?
Well, I am a big believer in AI as a tool that we will have to use. One of my biggest NIH grants is a program called Bridge to AI, which is an NIH initiative basically trying to get the medical workforce kind of to understand how to use AI, how to use it safely and ethically so that we can make the best health decisions. AI will absolutely have a role. Humans will 1000% also have a role. AI will never take the place of humans, but humans who use AI will replace humans who don't use AI. AI will help us, but you have to put the guardrails up. And you will never, ever, ever recapitulate a human healing touch with AI, or a human sense of spidey sense of, I know what's going on with AI. There are things that humans can do that AI will never be able to do.
So the AI can, one of the things AI may be useful, where do you see particularly remote patient monitoring, watching the patients at home with the AI?
Yeah,
Is
I
that
mean,
good?
we already have some of those things where, we implant some things in patients with heart failure. We can sense when their blood volume is going up, and so they may need to come in and get diuretics or something. We have things like that. And that is absolutely one of the applications. I also think there are many things we do, like echocardiograms, those ultrasound machines that read about the heart. There are many things that could be automated with AI that we now do visually. I think that could be a great use of that as well. And, soon AI generated model might be reading your chest x-ray. And honestly, that probably won't be okay. You will need a human to overread all
Mobile.
of those things to
Yeah.
make sure the algorithm didn't go astray. But I think you can do a lot with AI.
Few blocks from here, actually, there is a ultrasound, iPhone-based ultrasound, just as good as
Mhm.
big ultrasound now, and it is also AI. It recognizes some of the diseases. It's not all the way there, but some of the coronary or disease, bladder cancer, bladder pathologies, it can recognize some of those things.
Yeah.
It is a
What AI is fabulous at is pattern recognition.
pattern
They
recognition.
see a pattern and they say, I've seen that before. Oh, I know what that is. That's heart disease. That's bladder cancer. I know. So, yeah.
You're a pioneer in cardiology. You did a lot of preventive with all over the world. You did a study about particularly women. Let me bring a couple of women who can ask you their point of view from different ethnic backgrounds. So let me bring them to the table. This is Naseem, and then the other one is she's a Kavana. Let me introduce you. Naseem is a dentist. Kavana is just a medical doctor, just finished in India. Just
Wow,
maybe,
she's a dentist, she's a PhD, and she's an MBA. I see all that.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah. You have MBA, you have PhD. Actually, you should put MD, PhD. You have it. So,
Dr. Watson, it was very beautiful listening to you. I learned so many great things. Well, as an orthodontist, actually I'm an orthodontist with craniofacial fellowship, and sleep apnea is big thing for me. I would love to ask a couple of your perspective on the effect of sleep apnea, because this is a very, really a milestone that hasn't been touched by so many of orthodontists and surgeons as a dental part. And then I would the second question, really short, I would love to ask you, is there anything that you see or dentists are missing in terms of interdisciplinary or in the referral? We learned so many things at school, but do you think in practice are we missing things? So please elaborate on that as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, let me talk about the sleep apnea first. Sleep apnea and all sorts of sleep disturbances are just really bad. I call it sort of the magnifier. So if you have high blood pressure, sleep apnea is going to make it worse. If you have heart disease, sleep apnea is going to make it worse. So think of what happens when you have sleep apnea. Just like all of us, you go to sleep at night, and when you go to sleep, your sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight nervous system, is supposed to go to sleep as well. And it does. But when you have sleep apnea, you breathe and then you stop breathing. And your sympathetic nervous system's like, hey, wake up, wake up. And so instead of sleeping all night like it's supposed to, it's surging all night to make sure you don't die, to make sure you breathe. And every time you do that, that sympathetic surge is a danger to the heart. So that's why we know high blood pressure goes way up when you have sleep apnea. Heart disease, sudden death, way up when you have heart disease. So we have to do whatever we can to try to manage sleep apnea. And the next question, I think interestingly, I think the relationship between oral health and cardiovascular health is pretty strong. So you think those, that gingivitis is just like annoying? It's not. It's actually causing this inflammatory milieu that's directly attacking your heart. So those who have gingivitis and gum disease have a higher risk of heart disease and heart attack. So, there's just, I think, a lot that dentists and cardiologists should be talking about.
Fantastic. And Kavana, do you have any question?
Yes. So, Dr. Watson, it's really nice to be able to share the stage with you today. So, I have two questions, and they're both about women's heart health. The first one is, how do gender differences in cardiovascular care impact, say, treatment outcomes for women, and what advancements are being made to address these differences? And also, now I did read about the studies that you were doing. And could you share any key findings from your studies that have reshaped our understanding of heart diseases in women? I do know that you did talk about it with Ramana with respect to how heart diseases are identified later in women, or they develop later in women too. But so this is with respect to the care part of it.
Yeah. So I think both of your questions are kind of with respect to the care part. There's a shocking gap between optimal management of heart disease in men and women. We are really smart. We've done so many great studies. We understand what drugs help, what procedures help, what interventions help. We know these things. But when you look at men and women, you could have a same exact person. 65-year-old man, acute heart attack, hypertension, diabetes, etc. 65-year-old woman, heart attack, hypertension, diabetes, exactly the same everything. The man will get the optimal therapy much more often than the women. And it's not like, we've looked at that time and again. I 100% believe all physicians are in it for the good. They want to do the right thing by their patients. But when they've done studies and they did one really, really clever study. It was at one of the large internal medicine conferences. They set up a booth and they invited physicians to come in and get a little incentive to watch some videos and say, which of these people do you want to send to the cath lab because you're worried they're having a heart attack? There were 4 different actors. They all were dressed in the same drab hospital gown. They all had the same fake address, the same fake insurance, the same fake income, the same fake occupation, the same fake symptoms. Everything was the same. One was a black woman, one was a black man, one was a white woman, one was a white man. They gave them a classic script of someone who's having a heart attack. Classic. And then they said, which of these patients do you want to send to the cath lab? Which is the right therapy. The white man was the one they most likely often wanted to send. The black woman was the one they least often wanted to send. And these are doctors who want to do the right thing. And so they did these things. They wanted to figure out why. They did what they call likability scores. And it turns out they actually liked the black woman the most. But they didn't want to send her. And they gave a lot of different reasons, like, well, I didn't know if she could afford it. Yeah, I didn't think that she wanted something so invasive. A lot of different reasons. So a lot of this is, it's implicit bias. Not like we're not trying to do the wrong thing for people, but we have a lot of preconceived ideas about what's the right thing to do for certain groups of people.
Right. So, I hail from the South Asian community, and even So what you were talking about, right? In men now, heart diseases are cardiovascular diseases are usually seen as something that's more prevalent in men than in women. So for South Asian women who may not be fully aware of what risks they might be facing in terms of heart diseases, what are some actionable steps that they can take to safeguard their health and advocate for proper care?
Yeah, that's a great question. So that is in our Women's Cardiovascular Center. Our big thing is what we call the low-hanging fruit. What are the simple things we can all do every day that will improve our heart health? One of the things would be think about the food you're eating and maybe the ghee you're using, and figure out a healthier way to prepare the tasty meals. I know it's difficult because it's also true in the African American community. Food is love. And so thinking about changing that up evokes some kind of like response. But when you think about the most pro-inflammatory, harmful thing all of us do every single day is eat. So we want to put in our bodies things that are good for us. So that's one thing. There's also a lot of data on certain populations and physical activity. So I think South Asian women, kind of like African American women, tend to have less physical activity than others. And again, walking everywhere all the time. You don't have to mountain bike or marathon run. That's just crazy. Just walk everywhere all the time. And then again, what he brought up about the stress is so important. Stress levels are just getting higher and higher and higher in society. So, we really have to care for each other. That's why connect deeply is the last part of our motto, because I think many of us are just walking around holding in so much stress, and that's definitely a danger to our hearts. And if we just had community or a support group or something, or just friends you can play cards with, that will help immensely.
Yes. Well, I truly appreciate your valuable input today. That was very well put. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Dr. Watson, everybody is going to talk about all over the place in Silicon Valley. They talk about diets, Mediterranean diets, blue zone diet. They're talking about Okinawa diet. What are these diets? Anything? What is special about these diets, and why we need to follow a little bit of those diets?
Well, okay, first of all, I like calling them eating plans rather than diets, because diets are things you do for a couple months and then you fall off of. Eating plans are things you do for the rest of your life. And the reason we really like the Mediterranean eating plan is because it's a really helpful way of eating that you can do every day. You don't need a lot of fancy equipment to do it. You don't need to, do something way different than what you're used to doing. And it's so helpful and so tasty. And so those are things like, again, it's the low-hanging fruit. I can do helpful eating in a very pleasurable way. What I've learned a long time ago is that people do want to do the right things for their health, and they will do something if it's cheap, if it's easy, and if it's pleasurable. And you can get so many of the Mediterranean diet foods pretty cheaply, and many of the recipes are quite easy, and it's really yummy. So that's why we like that. There's other diets that are big. A lot of people like them, like the paleo diet. The paleo diet is a diet where people eat a lot of meat, kind of like a carnivore diet, because they said, well, that's how our caveman ancestors used to eat. And while that is true, remember our caveman ancestors used to die at the age of 40. We don't want to do that. So, yeah, even though, people do lose weight on that diet, and that, is what keeps them coming back, it's just not helpful. And I think everybody deep down in their heart knows that.
I wanted to talk with you a little bit more about the man. You made a lot of differences in men and women. Treatment wise, diagnosis wise, we use a different methods are coming up for women and men, like ultrasound wise. you have to do different way or anything like that? That particularly autonomic dysfunction is another one we measure. Is there any advances going on in the cardiac disease detection and the treatment side, Dr. Watson?
Yeah, I mean, we know that the classic stress test where you get on a treadmill and they do an EKG while you're doing that, it performs pretty well in men. It's almost like a coin flip in women. Sometimes it overpredicts
Really?
disease, sometimes it underpredicts disease. It's not that good. If you add an ancillary imaging procedure like an echocardiogram or myocardial perfusion, it improves the performance, but still performs a little bit better in men than women. Why is that? Because all of these studies were piloted, tested, and developed in men. And so they really work well in men and not quite as well in women. We're doing so much better now. We're piloting and testing things in women as well as men, so we're getting better. And we're learning, and we are getting better at diagnosing disease in women. And we're also learning a lot about the different diseases to worry about in women. For instance, SCAD, which I mentioned. SCAD can happen in men as well as women. It's much more likely to happen in women than men.
Dr. Watson, you have any questions, ladies, up there? I think, yeah.
It was a fantastic. Like I cannot.
It's a beautiful. She is really in the top of.
Very last question, Dr. Watson. Any recommendation for my old mom and dad? You have just a pearl that I can give them to keep in mind from now
Yes.
on? Yes, please.
Yes. Move frequently, eat thoughtfully, connect deeply. Absolutely.
Awesome.
So interesting. Like they've looked at that, and I told you about the move frequently and the eat thoughtfully. The connect deeply, they look at measure. It's very clear that people who are married tend to live longer than people who are not. So tell them to stay married. The other thing is when they've looked at people who are unmarried and their increased risk of either cardiovascular mortality or total mortality, turns out that being unmarried is significantly worse for men than it is for women. Why might that be? I think women have so many social supports that they get from other women that even if they're not married or living with someone, I think they can get a lot of the support they need elsewhere. And I think that's harder for men. So they need to stay together, especially your dad. Tell your dad that your mom is actually actively keeping him alive.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
So, Dr. Watson, by heart, I'm a physicist. I'm going to show you 4-minute video of how the physics play a role in healthcare.
By the way, that is why I went into cardiology, because I don't have to memorize a bunch of little hormones and things. I can figure out almost everything based on physics. That's why I went into cardiology.
I'm going to show you some little bit of that kind of thing, and you can see that video. Let me bring that video a little bit. Where is that video? Yeah, I'm going to play this video. Just we can all watch together.
Hello, my name is Ramana Annamaraju. I'm going to introduce you to one of the most enigmatic and elusive concepts in the entire field of science from my book, Science is Not a Subject, Science Must Be a Lifestyle. The concept is called entropy. I'm focusing on one aspect of entropy related to information and its connection with the present-day healthcare challenges. Entropy is like a ghost, but it is a mean one. You don't see it, you cannot talk to it, it never leaves you, it threatens your job, it tries to destroy your health, it affects your performance, it follows you wherever you go and whatever you do. You feel and see only its destruction. It is not your competitor you need to worry. You need to worry about this elusive ghost. It is your enemy number one. Please pay attention. It makes a difference in your career, in your job, and your duties. If you are a policymaker, you have to understand the impact of money and the economy of your citizens. If you are the CEO of a healthcare system, you have to be concerned about access and equity for all your members. And if you are a software engineer, you need to analyze simplicity versus complexity with your user experience design. As I mentioned before, entropy is your number one enemy. It is true what they say, know your enemy first, then you can come up with a strategy to deal with it. We need to start with the question how much you know and how much you don't know about a system you're working on. This is not some philosophical or a new age question. You have to quantify with the numbers. It is a scientific question to the core. The answer is not that easy. Fortunately, there was a guy smarter than all of us, gave a stunning insight. His name is Ludwig Boltzmann, an Austrian physicist, lived in the latter part of 1800s, came up with a statistical formula for known versus unknown. It is not just a formula, it is a law, second law of thermodynamics. In urban slang, we call it as a law of entropy. The law is not limited to known versus unknown, it is present everywhere, materials and processes and even life itself. Entropy is a true measure of your ignorance of a system. You may say, I don't know a lot of things, but I know what I know, and what I don't know, I don't know. This statement may seem right before you know about the law of entropy. The law of entropy says the unknown does not sit idle. It is constantly attacking your known systems. Entropy wants you to become ignorant and leaves you in constant confusion. It creates a chaos, your understanding of any system dwindling every day by law of entropy. Only way out is to fight it. Entropy is a tough concept to comprehend. I will do my best here with a simple example. You see a picture of a teacup with the 2 sugar cubes in the bottom, and the top teacup is mixed with the sugar. Adding 2 cubes of sugar makes you happier, but your happiness does not come for free. I know sugar prices are going up. Still worse, the law of entropy says your ignorance is also going up. You have known knowledge that there are 2 sugar cubes. Since you know something makes the bottom cup low entropy state. Now, when you mix the sugar, you turn the simple system into a complex system. Even if I ask you, you cannot get sugar cubes back. Sugar is melted away and you lost all the information about the sugar cubes. The irreversibility of the process increases the state of entropy. In a split second, you made the top cup in a higher entropy state. Known system became an unknown. Just it applies to a teacup. This irreversibility is evident everywhere and everything you do. A simple realization that if you create a process for your company with some data variables, the complexity slowly seeps in. It means you lost control of your process and the information becomes chaotic. But if you keep tabs on what it takes to reverse the process to the initial state, it saves you time, money, and energy. You are keeping the ghost of entropy at bay. Life itself is a low entropy system. Zoom in or zoom out, your cells to your entire body do hand-to-hand combat with the law of entropy to keep you healthy and alive. Your number one enemy is waiting at outskirts of your life and your company. Boltzmann revealed this book of knowledge and wisdom about the universe with his famous equation. He could not convince his peers about his theory. Later, Boltzmann committed suicide, and his famous formula was written on his tombstone. Devil also, like numbers. Chaos may be its nickname, but it is speaking the nature's language, that is mathematics. Cancer is cellular chaos. There is no diagnostic equipment can measure the exact progression, but with the entropy algorithms, you can extract patterns from seemingly chaotic information. One such algorithm came from an unrelated field, football. Yes, game of soccer. Soccer fanatics wanted to know who is going to win the World Cup that is being held every 4 years. The fans include a number of scientists. They created an algorithm called World Cup optimization algorithm. I don't know how much it is useful in predicting the World Cup winner, but it is helping to detect and predict the progression of cancer. They are testing with the cancer of melanoma and breast cancer. Gave the formula for entropy, but a brilliant mathematician and engineer at the Bell Labs, which became AT&T now, gave a different twist to the concept of entropy. His name is Claude Elwood Shannon. The theory bears his name. It is called a Shannon entropy. According to Shannon, the information is central to all processes.
Which I think he's very widely known for, is this notion of a fundamental limit. No matter what you do, as long as you're working with a certain amount of bandwidth, and as long as you're dealing with signals that are only so strong in the face of noise that you confront, no matter what you do, you cannot transmit more than a certain rate.
Here is one remarkable example how you can employ Shannon entropy to healthcare equity and access. The world of medicine made a huge progress in diagnostics and treatments, but healthcare delivery systems are not. A significant number of people on the planet don't see those benefits. Health inequities you can witness in rural and urban America's landscape, and worse, everywhere else. Health delivery system is riddled with complexities. It may be partially political, but it is also filled with logistical complexities. Variants like remote geography, disease burden, and economic backgrounds, to name a few. Where there is a complexity, law of entropy shines. Shannon entropy is successfully utilized by countries like Iran, Turkey, and Greece to address the inequities in healthcare delivery by allocating and utilizing existing resources more efficiently. Truly a remarkable tribute to human mind, how an obscure 18th century physicist from Austria and 21st century brilliant mathematician from MIT can help humanity by discovering the hidden laws of nature. Thank you for listening. You can read in my book further. Science is not a subject, science must be a lifestyle.
I'll let you comment on that one, Dr. Karol.
I think it's fascinating. I was sitting here thinking while I was listening to that, like how could I apply that to atherosclerosis?
Yeah.
And I think there are several parallels. So I think I'll have to ponder